Previously on the war in Cali.
In a few years, Black Panther leaders were either killed, arrested, and faced lengthy jail sentences. But that was only the beginning. Political activists across the nation were mysteriously assassinated or sent to prison, leaving the Black community in fear and despair. Little did the FBI know that a far more violent and deadly enemy would rise after the Panthers, and they called themselves the Crips. My name is Jeff Truman, and this is the second episode of The War in Cali. On August 14th, 1953, a boy is born into the racial segregated slums of South Los Angeles. He grows up watching the racial cries of his elders, like the Watts riots of 1965, the execution of Black Panther leaders, the death of Black political activists such as Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. So with all hope lost for the Black community, the boy decides to start his own movement, and his mission was to put together the biggest gang in the city. His name was none other than Raymond Lee Washington. As a young boy, Raymond Washington always wanted to be a part of the Avenues, who were credited to be the first real gang before the Crips. But the problem was, he didn't live in Avenue territory, and this posed a problem. Allegedly, Craig Monson, one of the founders of the Avenues, had a fight with Washington, where Craig backhanded the then 15-year-old Washington and told him to disappear and never show his face again.
Come here, Raymond. Like that. What? I said, I don't want you coming over here no more, you little motherfucker. And I slapped him. I backhand him like that.
So at the age of 16, Washington and his friends formed an alliance on the east side of South Los Angeles and formed what is now known as the Crips. The name Crips is heavily debated, where some claim that the original name was actually Baby Avenue Cribs. However, most OGs claim a different story.
Never been no cribs, man. We knew what we were doing.
Craig Monson, the man who prohibited Washington from joining the Avenues, said this.
Had a limp. He walked with a limp, up and down like that. And he said to me, I don't want to be in the Avenues no how. I'm going to go and I'll start my own gang. And I said, what you going to call it, you little crip? I said that because of him walking up and down. Because he had a bad limp. And he said to me, that's what I'm going to call it, the Crips.
Drawing inspiration from the Panthers, Raymond and his friends used their gang to unite and promote strength in the community and offer protection from other rival gangs that would try to disrupt the peace in his neighborhood. To expand his gang even further, Raymond Washington met with another man from the west side, and his name was none other than Stanley Tookie, who controlled the gangs west of the 110 freeway. Both men came into an agreement, and by 1972, there were as many as 5 Crip sets. From the East Side Crips, the West Side Crips, the Englewood Crips, the 104th Street Crips, and the Compton Crips. It was in the same year that due to poverty in South Central, the Crips started getting involved in crimes such as robbery and home invasions, and they termed it as cripping. March 1972, at a concert in Hollywood, a group of Crips attempted to steal a leather jacket, which led to the death of 16-year-old Robert Ballou Jr., a football player at Los Angeles High. It was at this moment that the Crips had their first media coverage all over the Los Angeles newspaper, and this increased the number of new members. By 1974, the gang had grown to a great deal, and Raymond Washington was sentenced to 5 years in jail for robbery. This was when all hell broke loose. The Crips now didn't have a leader to unite them. From this point on, Crips started turning on Crips, and the killings in South Central skyrocketed. Crips went from using knives, bats, and fistfights with rival gangs to using guns, and it was a massacre.
Guys don't fight anymore. They don't use the. We used to fight, but they don't do that anymore. Guns. All about shooting, taking them out.
The motto was simple: it's Crip or die. In due time, while Raymond Washington was behind bars, his wish came true. The Crips were finally the biggest gang in the city. In 1979, Crip founder Raymond Washington is finally released from jail, and what he found shocked him. The Crips were now beyond his control, and the small gangs that he once left were now 45 Crip sets, each battling each other instead of rival gangs. The members were now using guns, which Raymond Washington had a huge distaste for because he believed that real men solved their differences with the fist. August 9th, 1979. Washington is hanging out on the corner of 64th and San Pedro. A car creeps forward, and the occupants call on Raymond by name. Without any hesitation, he walks up to the car, breaking his #1 rule, which is to never walk up on a car. Suddenly, the occupants produce a sawed-off shotgun and shoot Raymond Lee Washington at point-blank range, tearing into his stomach. Washington is rushed to the hospital, where he's presumed dead. To this day, the killer has never been identified. But while all this was happening, another force was brewing. Though they were outnumbered by the Crips 3-1, they still had the heart to fight for their neighborhoods. And they called themselves the Bloods. In 1972, a student from Seminole High School, Sylvester Pudding Scott, decided to retaliate against the Crips. The way he did it was very simple. He pulled together some of his friends and launched a resistance, and he called it the Pyrus. The objective was clear: to protect their neighborhoods from the Crips and to force them off their streets. What mainly distinguished the Pyrus from the Crips was the colors they flew, and that would be red. Smaller gangs joined the resistance, and they united under one name, and that's the Bloods. And due to them being outnumbered by the Crips, unity was their best line of defense.
Form of protection for the community, to protect the neighborhoods from the advancements of the Crips.
To me, it takes more heart to be a Blood than a Crip, because we are outnumbered.
Both Crips and Bloods were now organized military groups with guns, flags, and hand signs to communicate with each other. The Crips had their cripping, and the Bloods had their CK riding, which meant Crip killing. And throughout the 80s and 90s, the fight between Crips and Bloods escalated, where homicides in Los Angeles became a part of day-to-day life. Drive-by after drive-by, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department declared that between 1985 to 1990, there were over 2,800 deaths, which were all connected to gangs. And some of these deaths were just innocent bystanders. The fact of the matter is, the causes of which Bloods and Crips were founded on had changed a great deal. Now it's all about revenge, having more guns, tagging enemy walls with gang symbols, money, and last but not least, selling a white powder from South America, which changed gang violence from street beefs to military gang warfare, and they called it crack.